Hello and welcome to Women of Worth Wednesday. I'm GanelLyn Condi. I am so thrilled to be with you. I'm outside, which means you could probably hear the lawnmowers and edgers of the neighborhood right now. I hope that you'll comment where you're watching from. I'm coming to you from outside for a purpose today. It's part of my message. I don't know if you can see behind me here. I'm going to try to scoot that over. My tree behind me there has two poles about right here that are holding it steady in place. And when I was pondering and thinking about a message to share with you today, what came to my mind is we've been in this home almost 6 years, so in November 6 years, and it has taken us about that long. We're still working on putting in our landscaping. So for the first few years, for those of you that have followed me or have heard me speak or heard my story, know that a few months after moving into this home, we were still recovering from a major financial blow and job loss and starting over and selling everything. We went through another job loss and there weren't resources to pull from. And so those of you that have built a home and tried to put in landscaping, you know what a financial investment it is. We live in a neighborhood where there's an HOA, and so there's certain rules about weeds and yard control. And so my husband worked almost full time trying to keep the weeds out of our yard. And he had finally found a job that was he was overexperienced for, underpaid for, and a lot of hours, but it was necessary that we work, and that he provide, and that's what he was trying to do. So I'm going to just share with you that it was limited time, but a lot of work to try to keep the weeds out of the yard. And I remember saying to him, I was trying to help, and it was kind of his thing that he was doing, and I kept asking him, can we get some help? Maybe we can ask for some help on this, and because it was starting to get out of control. And he kept saying, no, I've got it. I can work on Saturday. And so he'd come out for hours and try to get the weeds. And over the years, we started to get better at knowing how to control it. But that first summer, for sure, it was totally out of control. So one day I decided he was not going to ask for help. And so I organized a little surprise. And I posted something with secret in our neighborhood ward page on Facebook, and we surprised him, and it makes me cry when I think about it. The people that showed up, but more than anything, what touched my heart was my husband, the joy he had in receiving of their support and love. And at first he was like, I've got this. Like, I know how to weed. I can do it. It's just going to take time. He was trying to juggle a whole bunch of things. And everyone brought treats. And we kind of had this like surprise weed pulling party for my husband in the backyard. To this day, he will talk about that was one of the times he felt the most love and joy. And it brought to mind just a few weeks ago, we finally planted the last two plants, and they were two trees in our backyard. And where we planted them, where we live, it's very, very windy if you are familiar with Lehigh. And one of the trees I noticed was starting to slip just a little bit. And so we put two posts alongside of both of these trees. And I almost got a sense that the trees were like, we got this, like you don't need to put posts to help us. We're strong. And I felt the Spirit remind me how, as these trees are trying to get through this initial shock of being put in this new area of the earth, and winter and fall are upon us, that right now is important for them to have that additional support. That those support beams aren't going to always have to be there. We have trees on the other side of the yard that started out the first year and a half or two with posts like this, and they've grown their root system strong, and we've been able to pull those posts out. And it reminded me that we go through seasons of our lives where we really, really need support. And sometimes it's really hard to ask for it or receive it. And sometimes when we're talking about ministry, we're talking about all the ministering we're going to do for others. And we forget that part of building Zion is becoming one heart and one mind. And that means there are those that are going to need to receive. And most of us, if not all of us on the planet, are simultaneously needing help and giving help every day. And for my husband, that was such, and for me as well, to see what Zion felt like that day when all of these neighbors, and for those in my neighborhood that are watching this and were there that day, the love, and they weren't all our very, very best, closest friends. They were in our neighborhood community and in our ward community and our ward family. And we grew this great love for each other that day because there was an opportunity to serve. It wasn't a huge thing. No one was dying. We weren't starving. Our house hadn't burned down. It was just a stress that was starting to weigh on my husband. And so my invitation to you is maybe you're in a season where, like my new trees, you need some additional support. Maybe you're in a season where you're the one giving the support. I hope that we will all open our hearts and ask for the help. It's hard to ask for help. Sometimes we're afraid we're being too needy or that people have bigger problems than us. My husband and the weeds and our unemployment and underemployment was not a huge thing. But to surprise him with that love was such an important lesson. He'll tell you about asking and giving help. And it was a small way in which we created a little bit of a Zion experience. It reminds me of some scripture examples. I love to share stories, but I love more than anything to give you examples from the scriptures as well. Aaron was called to literally hold up the arms of Moses. And in that, he was able to direct the people. He had to keep his arms up and they were getting heavy and tired. I think of Hiram Smith and how he was such a support to Joseph. I think of Ruth and Naomi and how their ministering was just staying together. Sometimes we can't fix the problem. No one could help us through hurrying up getting our yard in the last 6 years. But we needed the support. And in the process, it was just people showing up. And so sometimes we just show up. In ministering, we sit with someone like Ruth and Naomi stayed together. They didn't separate. I also think about how Elizabeth and Mary were given support to each other because they were going through a similar experience. And so sometimes we're giving support in the area we need it. And hopefully the Lord is providing that back for us. I think of Amulek and Alma. Alma was discouraged as a missionary. And when the Lord said, go back after he'd been rejected from these people, he found his new best friend. That if he hadn't gone back and received that help, Amulek's life would have been less blessed and Alma would have been less blessed. But the togetherness and the way the Lord had prepared Amulek to serve, to me, is one of the great best friend stories of the scriptures. So I hope today that if there's something on your heart that's hurting and you're needing support but you're afraid to need, I hope that you'll open yourself up like my trees and receive that help and have the stakes on either side of you while you need it for this season. In a season of maybe giving that support, I hope that you'll realize that you're doing a great work, even if you're not fixing the problem. Maybe you're just showing up and standing next to. These stakes right here aren't watering the tree, fertilizing the tree. They're not the soil. They're just showing up in the way they can. I hope this message blesses someone today, and I hope you'll share it with someone that maybe needs additional support. And thank you for joining us here on Women of Worth Wednesday. It's a wonderful opportunity to be a community here at High Five Live, and I hope that you continue to share this page and these messages with your loved ones. And we'll see you again next week on Women of Worth Wednesday.